Hi and welcome. This webinar features the Men Project's annual virtual giving event and monthly workshop on boundaries, a topic we all care about. I'll open our session by sharing our mission, highlights we accomplished this year, and our dreams for the future, and how donors can make a meaningful impact in the lives of victims and survivors around the world. For the last half of the hour together, we're going to address boundaries. Whether or not you're in a healthy or complicated relationship with a spouse, adult child, or a toxic parent, understanding healthy boundaries can help you create peace, safety, and emotional health in your relationships, and decide when it's best to create some distance in love or let go completely. Together, we'll explore how maintaining healthy boundaries begins with clarity, overcoming your anxiety and fear, and how to respond if your reasonable boundary is not honored. So please join us in this impactful hour today. Hi, and welcome. Boundaries are a critically important topic, whether you're in a healthy relationship or a complicated one. Understanding the do's and don'ts, your fears, your anxieties, and how to create space from another person in a loving way or pull away entirely can be stressful and confusing. Clarity of all these components and more is essential. I'm Annette Oltmans, founder and CEO of the Men Project. Thank you for joining us for our annual end-of-year virtual giving event and monthly workshop on boundaries, celebrating Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We're thrilled to have our donors who make this all possible and our beautiful men community together today. Donors, you are the heartbeat of MEND. Without you, this community wouldn't exist. MEND community, as you listen, we hope you feel seen, valued, and supported. You are worth every dollar we spend to provide you this support. Please take a moment to thank our donors in the chat or share how MEND has helped you so they can see the impact of their generosity. I'd like to take a brief moment to introduce you to the MEND team. We have two people who are employees of MEND that are behind the scenes. They work so hard to make everything run smoothly. The first person I'd like to introduce is Jill Rice, our Director of Training and Curriculum. You hear her voice at our monthly workshops, but you don't see her beautiful face. Jill collaborates with me on research and content, and we work together to bring you the most relevant and current information on intimate partner struggles. Thank you, Jill. The next person I'd like to introduce is Chandra Ben. Chandra is our admin manager and guru of all things technological. She keeps our operations running smoothly and ensures everything stays on track. She does so much for us. Thank you so much, Chandra. Today, I want to highlight key accomplishments from this year and outline our hopes for the next, followed by a 30-minute workshop on boundaries, one of the most essential tools for navigating difficult relationships and building healthy ones. At MEND, our primary focus is on educating survivors by providing precise and easy to understand language, which ultimately empowers them to be able to identify and describe their complex relationships dynamics in a way that others can understand so they can advocate for themselves. Clarity regarding the confusing, manipulative behaviors victims are experiencing is the first necessary step to their healing. Education and knowledge brings validation and empowerment. We also train people helpers and professional responders so they can learn how to walk alongside victims in trauma-informed best practices to prevent what we call double abuse, because so often people are not met with support by responders. They inadvertently handle it incorrectly. So because of you, our dear donors, both survivors and responders gain the clarity and education they need to bring restoration. Our vision is a world where abuse is no longer misunderstood, mishandled, or minimized, and your support is turning that vision into reality. Because of you and your generosity, 2025 has been a year of real impact, bringing hope, healing, and transformation to more lives than ever in the history of MEND. For starters, our website community has more than doubled from last year to over 75,000 active users each month. That's 75,000 people every month who felt validated, supported, and less alone because you chose to give. You've also made it possible for us to give 136 scholarships for our survivor course, Finding Clarity and Healing in Difficult, Confusing, or Abusive Relationships. Graduates of the course regularly report that it not only changed their lives, but it jump-started their healing process and saved them about a year of traditional therapy. Our groundbreaking language is resonating with professionals in the intimate partner space. I've spoken at major domestic violence conferences and domestic violence advocacy trainings and numerous podcasts. Men has helped frontline organizations like Peace Through Action USA bring our training to advocates and survivors across the country. These events enable me to share our life-changing information with hundreds of professionals who will then take the training they received to their clients and into their communities, impacting thousands of victims and survivors. In addition to speaking in person and doing virtual training for outside organizations, our monthly live workshop webinars have grown to nearly 100 participants per workshop and thousands more who view the recording later. One highlight of the growth we've experienced is very robust online chats full of thank yous and vulnerable questions. Sometimes we can't get to every question, even when we stay online way beyond our scheduled time. And because of this need, we've created a virtual private coaching community solely devoted to questions and answers. We call this new endeavor our Restore Coaching Community. We also have a special announcement that I'm excited to share with you all for the first time. Mend applied for a grant with Samueli Foundation to translate all of our blog articles, courses, and materials into Spanish, and to create a comprehensive Spanish language section on our website. This is a robust effort, and the Samueli Foundation has very generously granted us the funds to fully fund this project, making all of our resources available to all Spanish-speaking survivors and responders. With 1 in 3 people experiencing coercive control and 50% of the population reporting experiencing psychological abuse in their lifetime, the epidemic is urgent. Your donation ensures that when survivors seek answers online or within their communities, our transformative information is found without delay. Every donor is a hero. If you are a previous donor, whatever you've given in the past, we would like to sincerely thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We could not do this without you. Consider participating again this year, or even increasing your monthly or annual amount, because this is what your generosity makes possible. Scholarships for survivors to take our Finding Clarity course. This course, like I said, is often described by graduates as life-changing. We need $10,000 to be able to fulfill all the scholarship requests. Number 2 is that improving usability and search engine optimization ranking of our website is critical to our growth goals. These efforts are necessary so that more people in need can find us online, and so their online experience is easy and runs more smoothly. Rarely does a victim search terms like domestic violence or abuse or victim. This is because they haven't yet figured out that the source of their confusion and stress within their relationship problems is actually intimate partner violence. It's usually covert emotional abuse. We learned phrases that survivors search for instead. Then we optimize our blog articles for search engines so they can be found more easily. To continue this, it takes about $20,000 a year to make this happen. The next is that we are in the final process of developing a special trauma-informed curriculum for school faculty and administrators, high school faculty and administrators, so they can learn how to improve their responses to bullying, to covert emotional abuse, and teen dating violence in ways that are victim-centered and supportive, impacting hundreds, if not thousands of students. We will need to hire a new staff member to implement outreach to high schools around the country. And this amount that we need is 50,000, sorry. We receive daily emails and comments on our blogs and YouTube of how MEND has changed the course of many survivors' lives. I'd like to take a couple of moments to share several real-life testimonies from courageous members of our community. Every time you give, you become part of stories like these. Let's take a listen.
The MEND project is the best resource I have found on covert emotional abuse. I've gained so much clarity and confidence from the terms and definitions, the maze of confusion, the online course, and Annette's teachings where we can ask questions. It's just been a godsend for me. I liked that the focus was on behaviors and not like a specific diagnosis. That was helpful. And I really think that all therapists should have to take the MEND project training. I think it would help a lot of people. Thank you.
My name is Veronica Stevens. I was the executive director for a large domestic violence agency in Orange County, California, before I moved to Tennessee in May of this year. During that time, we conducted a 40-hour domestic violence advocacy training that is state certified, and I am happy to report that the MEND project for close to 5 years came 3 times a year during the training to train our advocates on double abuse and covert emotional abuse. They equip them with the necessary vocabulary and understanding on how to best help the victims of domestic violence. We were and still are so grateful for their partnership in bringing this much needed education to the domestic violence space.
I never knew that domestic violence was also emotional and psychological abuse. For too long, people have recognized abuse as only bruises and physical scars. Yet ongoing abuse can cause PTSD, and those invisible wounds can actually build, if not healed, through EMDR therapy. From resources I found through the MEND project, I began to understand that I wasn't alone.
Hello, my name is Jan, and I want to express my deep gratitude to the MEND Project and its founder, Annette Oltmans. This organization has provided me with the clarity I needed to understand the covert emotional abuse I endured during my 34-year marriage. Through the MEND Project, I also recognized that I had faced double abuse, not just from at least 2 therapists, but also from a well-respected and well-known pastor in the area. After years of confusion, I have finally found healing and insight through the educational resources offered by the MEND Project.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Khalifa. I'm the Senior Director of Prevention and Capacity Building with our statewide Domestic Violence Coalition. I was formerly on the advisory board for the MEND Project. I'm currently a board member, and I also currently support their grant writing efforts. One thing that MEND has really taught me has been how crucial and important it is that we meet the needs of our survivors right where they are. The work that they do to make sure that responders are trained appropriately to address double abuse and covert emotional abuse is so critical and essential. And I feel that I have learned so much from them about how important and critical it is that we are trauma informed in the ways that we are supporting our survivors.
My name is Amber Balakian, and Last year, I shared how the Men Project gave me the words and the tools that I needed to reclaim my voice after surviving abuse. This year, I wanted to share what has happened since then. When I first broke free of my abusive relationship, I thought I would finally be able to rebuild. Instead, I was met with confusion and invalidation, what I now know as double abuse. I turned to several local organizations and resources, but none of them gave me the education and the clarity that I truly needed. I was desperate for answers, so I started researching on my own, and that's when I found the Men Project. For the first time, I had the words to describe what I had endured. The Men Project's resources helped reframe my experience, and it gave me the confidence that I didn't think I had anymore. Their language empowered me to face my abuser in court and to advocate for myself in the legal system, where survivors are so often silenced. When I reached out directly, I was met with both compassion and tangible support. I finally felt heard after months of feeling invisible. Last month, I testified in the criminal jury trial against my abuser after waiting for 2 years. The justice system ultimately failed me, but the Men Project had already equipped me with what I needed: the courage to stand firm, the clarity to tell my story, and the strength to persevere even when the outcome was not what I had hoped for. Although justice was denied in my situation, I have not stopped fighting for myself and my son. I continue to advocate for our safety, focus on my healing, and place my energy in the things that I have control over. The Men Project's framework has guided me through each step, transforming what once felt like hopelessness into a renewed sense of purpose. The Men Project has empowered me not only to survive, but also to help rebuild, reclaim my voice, and continue forward, even when other systems and organizations have let me down. Thank you so much for supporting the Men Project. It's because of you that survivors like myself can find the courage and strength to face what was once impossible, and then to also hope in my future. Thank you.
Okay, so today you can be the hero in someone's story. You can give the gift of clarity, support, and healing, and they will never forget the difference you've made. It's not just a donation, it's a life-changing investment in someone's healing journey who has experienced abuse, often for years or even decades. If the Men Project aligns with your giving interests, I invite you to give early and give generously today. Before the end of the year, busyness sets in. Please see this slide with information on how to give. Thank you for taking this time out of your busy schedule. We could not change lives without your generous and faithful support. So I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now I want to step into our portion on boundaries. Boundaries are such an important topic with many nuances and layers. If you are new here, or if you are a donor who is joining us for a workshop for the first time, we're so grateful to have you with us and hope you'll stay with us for the next 30 minutes. Boundaries are a relevant topic for all of us. Real quick, I'd like to review the participant guidelines. When you share your comments and questions, it enriches our time together and benefits everyone. So please feel free to share them as they come to mind, so that you won't forget that, like if you wait, then you might forget what you were going to say. This is a judgment-free zone, so don't be afraid to comment. Please place all your questions, however, in the Q&A box. Because the chat fills quickly with interaction, which we love, putting your questions in the Q&A box will ensure we won't miss them. Privacy is everything, and each person will be addressed anonymously. This workshop is being recorded and will be emailed to you. You can find all recordings on our website, training and research page, and our YouTube channel. Okay, so let's get started. Whether you're in a healthy relationship or a toxic one with a parent or spouse or adult child, many of us have spent years accommodating others' requests or needs. Sometimes that means twisting ourselves into knots, hoping our efforts will inspire change in the other person. This creates a disconnection from your sense of self. You become exhausted, and it's easy to feel unsure of what your needs even are anymore because you're giving so much and catering to another person. You are allowed to care for yourself. In fact, you need to. When we gently shift our focus onto ourselves, what makes us feel safe, to bring a sense of respect and calm to a relationship, the dynamics have an opportunity to improve, or you will gain valuable insight into the severity of the problem so that you can take steps to disengage or set firm limits or terminate the relationship entirely. Boundary setting is not selfish. And I want to make it abundantly clear that this conversation is not meant to apply in any way that a lack of boundaries makes the victim in the situation any way responsible for the difficult person's choice to take advantage or mistreat you. If you're in an abusive relationship, please be assured that abuse is a choice. It's not an accident, and it's never the victim's fault. I need to add a qualifier. Suppose your physical safety is at risk. I don't recommend setting boundaries until you have a well thought out safety and exit plan in place. Boundaries are like fences that protect the good and keep out the not so good. They're designed to invite healthy connection. Said another way, we aim to celebrate the good and put limits on the bad for our relationships. What are boundaries actually? Boundaries are expressions of self-respect, dignity, wisdom, and love. Boundaries say, this is what I will accept and this is what I will not. Or this is how I will take care of myself. Boundaries protect your mind and they guard your heart. They guard your body and soul from what is harmful or emotionally exhausting. When you set boundaries, you begin to reconnect with yourself and your agency in the relationship. You may feel guilty setting a boundary because of what the other person says or does in response, but please don't let yourself feel guilt. Don't give in to allowing the other person to define who you really are or to mischaracterize your motives as controlling or to minimize the peace that you're intending. That's their side of the fence, and we cannot control that. It shouldn't alter your choice to set reasonable limits. Clarity is the starting point. For many survivors in their stress and confusion, exhausted, they might think, if I can just get them to see what they're doing, I'm sure they'll stop. But that thinking keeps you stuck. With a clear mind, you can come to know that your health and healing do not come from hoping to change someone else. The phrase hopium comes to mind, or said another way, magical thinking is a term that applies. You can initiate change by changing yourself. Said another way, without boundaries, we play a part in enabling harmful behavior to themselves or others, accepting maltreatment against ourselves. So I'm not saying that you can change the other person by changing yourself, but you can change the dance and you can change the way your internal thoughts and the way you feel about yourself in the situation. Taking these steps will build strength and you will begin to feel more empowered. You will have agency that you didn't have before. To be successful at setting limits in your relationships, it's imperative that you gain clarity. So what do I mean by this? Don't make hasty decisions. Instead, take a good pause to think about the potential responses that you're going to receive after setting a boundary and address your fears about them. For example, years ago, my husband rarely honored my reasonable boundaries, and I was also too fearful to follow through with consequences because I feared he would simply abandon me. I had to really think about this. I needed to take a pause and process my fears of abandonment before my reasonable limits could be effective. And this took me some time. A boundary is merely a complaint if we don't follow through with tangible consequences when they do not comply. In other words, if it was something really important and my husband broke a promise, I needed to follow through on what I said I would do in response. This step of follow through takes courage. If your parent, for example, tells you that you must listen to them and come for dinner every Sunday night as though you are age 3 instead of age 33, and you want to break that toxic cycle by setting limits or disengaging somewhat to protect your autonomy, you don't necessarily need to terminate your relationship or comply with their demands. Take a pause. Think about how your parent might retaliate or guilt you or claim you are disrespecting or hurting their feelings, playing the victim. Address your fears and think of ways you can respond that feel realistic. Clarity of all these issues and nuances that are creating the toxicity, your fears regarding potential outcomes, and clarity on what limits you'll actually be willing to set and follow through on is the first step before actually taking action and setting those limits. So clarity is the first step to boundary setting. To speak truth within a boundary, you need to know the truth clearly. For example, is this abuse? Or is this healthy or unhealthy? Am I being harmed? Or I do not have to live like this. I don't want to continue to feel this way. So these are questions that you need to think about. Boundaries start with you. Before setting boundaries with others, listen to yourself. Notice what your body is telling you. How does your body signal stress? Are your interactions with this person causing you anxiety? Your body is going to recognize red flags before your mind does. So I want you to be really in tune with how you're feeling. If you don't seem to be able to overcome your fears based on all the sensations in your body, you can take baby steps. A baby step might be simply telling someone that you don't like being guilted into conforming to something you don't agree with. So you're just basically saying, I don't like blah, 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 or I don't like when you talk to me this way. Basically saying, I don't like when you do this or that. You might need to honor yourself by taking baby steps until you're strong enough to follow through on your intentions, even if others don't approve. Ask yourself, what do I need to feel safe and whole? Where am I abandoning myself to keep the peace? Your boundary might look like saying no without an explanation. No is a complete sentence. Or taking time to pause before reacting so that what you say is a thoughtful and firm response rather than something that you regret. And when you're in an abusive relationship or a toxic relationship, oftentimes it's so stressful and confusing for a long time that you develop post-traumatic stress disorder. And with post-traumatic stress disorder comes that fight, flight, freeze, or appease, hypervigilant response. So you tend to react versus respond. It's so important that you be aware of your triggers and really work to overcome them. You might need to read books on healing from trauma or seeking help from a trauma-informed therapist. But I want to get you to a place where you can give a thoughtful, calm, and firm response. Walking away when conversations become harmful. Let's say someone ignores how you feel and instead complains about how a boundary makes them feel. You don't need to explain yourself. You can simply say, okay. For example, your mother says, if you break family tradition and go to your in-laws this Christmas, I will be very upset with you. You can simply say, okay, meaning you're okay if they're upset with you. Healthy boundaries are rooted in love and respect, both for yourself and for others, wanting to help the relationship get to a healthier place, a deeper, more safe and loving connection. Unhealthy boundaries would be setting a limit that's too rigid or too flexible or used for manipulation or control, disrupting the balance between independence, a person's autonomy, and intimacy in a relationship. Examples would include being unable to say no. Do you have a problem saying no? That's something that you really need to spend time researching and learning about. Taking responsibility for others' feelings, that's not healthy. You're not responsible for how somebody else feels. They're responsible for their feelings. You're responsible for your actions, and it's going to have an impact, and you're going to experience consequences from your actions. But the way the person interprets it and feels about it is really something that can be so vastly different from person to person. That's where we take responsibility for our own feelings. You don't want to overshare personal information. That would be an unhealthy boundary. You're overly imposing on another person, and you're almost expecting them to soothe your wounds. That's something that needs to be reserved for really close, safe relationships, and not in this codependent way where you're relying on their advice before you make your decisions. Using boundaries to control someone. That is something that abusers often do. These boundaries are often a result of people pleasing or lacking self-respect. And being controlling often comes from a fear of rejection. So it has a fear motive to it. Like, I don't want you to go golfing, or I don't want you to go out and see your friends, or you're not allowed to this. You need to spend more time with me, even though you've spent all week together. It's these controlling the way the other person can use their time within reason. We all need to be, if we're in a relationship, we need to honor that relationship. But when it gets controlling, you'll feel it when it's being done to you, that your movement in the world is restricted. So you don't want to do that to another person either. I'll give you a couple examples. I will not stay in the room when you raise your voice at me. That's perfectly reasonable. You walk out of the room. An unhealthy boundary would be remaining in the room, hoping your silence will calm them down while you face a barrage of abusive statements and rage. Now, if the person is violent, I'm mostly speaking to those who are experiencing emotional abuse. When there's physical violence, there's a different protocol that you need to follow. And I don't recommend that you set these firm boundaries if your life is at stake. You need to survive the situation and make an exit plan. Okay, another example, a healthy boundary is, I need an evening each week that's just mine, and I'll take that time without guilt. I really need this. An unhealthy boundary is allowing your partner to dictate every hour of your time or where and when you can go, or likewise, you doing that to them. The difference between healthy and unhealthy boundaries is between living in alignment with truth and clarity and being swept up in someone else's dysfunction. Rigid boundaries can sometimes be unhealthy too. For example, if you say you need that one night to yourself, yet your week is full with organized sports your children are participating in during the same week, your spouse comes to you and says, I'm being honored at an evening work dinner, and it's the only free evening you have. I'd really like you to attend with the other spouses. If it's something special, it may be too rigid to say, I won't attend because your work event is on my free night to be with friends. You may need to be flexible. On the other hand, if your spouse constantly comes up with events to take away your free evening, if they're constantly trying to monopolize your time on your free night, then it's warranted that your boundary be more rigid and firm. Okay, now I want to switch to learning to detach with love. An important piece of setting a boundary, when your boundaries are not honored, it's learning to detach with love. So what I mean by love is that you're staying in your core self. You're not getting hyper emotional. You're not reacting. You are thinking. And after you've thought it through, then you take action that is a thoughtful response. So detachment is not totally cutting off the other person. It's clarity in action. It's emotionally disconnecting. You stop bringing your vulnerabilities to them, and you stop hoping for them to soothe your wounds. You also stop exhausting yourself with explanations and accommodations. Detaching will help break the trauma bond. You have to accept that they're not capable or willing of meeting your emotional needs. So why bring your most intimate emotions to somebody who is just going to stomp all over them? We emotionally create some distance. We detach. It's saying that mood that they're in is theirs. It's not mine. I'm not going to try to talk them out of this bad mood or show them how it's hurting me. I'm just not even going to engage. Or it's, I choose not to enter that chaotic conversation. I'm just going to go upstairs and close the door. Or even though they are acting like the victim, you being able to recognize it and say, that's their problem. It's not mine. I know that I didn't victimize them. I'm just speaking truth in love, and they can't take it. So detachment helps you hold on to your emotional center. You're not responsible for fixing another adult's moods. In fact, we cannot change other people. I've said that before. We can only change how we are thinking internally and how we act. You're taking a big step towards healing once you accept that and stop engaging and stop over-explaining. You can love someone and still refuse to tolerate harm. With detachment, you make room for your autonomy, for your preferences and your values. And values are important, and you're entitled to your preferences, and you're entitled to your individuality. Just because you're in a marital relationship or a familial relationship, parent to child, doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything the other person is saying or doing. You are in fact, we raise our children to individuate, to become their own people, and they're entitled to that. Each step you take towards honoring your needs is a powerful act of courage and will make you stronger. So I want you to reclaim your voice and dignity. And boundaries are a way to say, I matter. I get to take up space too. I get to decide what is right for me, and I need to be okay with them not being okay. You don't need to become upset and full of anxiety because they are not okay. You can actually train yourself to separate from that enmeshment and allow them to have their tantrum, and you say, that's them, it's not me. I'm not going to take this on. I'm not going to internalize this chaos. I'm not going to give it a second thought. You can speak your boundary in a kind and loving way. You can disengage thoughtfully without an out of character reaction that you may regret or that makes matters worse for you and them. The more calm and firm you are, the more effective you will be. The less you explain your boundary, the more effective you will be. You may have trauma from years of maltreatment. You may be reactive. Rather than spending time worrying about them, work with a therapist to overcome your trauma and your reactionary behaviors. Because just by reducing that is going to help the dynamic so much. It's going to help your sanity because they are not reacting to your reaction. Things are not getting blown out of proportion. You can maintain this area of calm and control in the relationship, but it takes work to overcome triggers. Trauma is not easily overcome. You have to work at it. You have to read about it. You have to get out and exercise and do activities that bring you joy. There's so much involved in the modalities to heal trauma. And that's the work and the focus that I would like to see you spending your time on. Finally, I want to tell you to begin with compassion for yourself. Don't judge yourself for not being ready to set a firm boundary. And don't give up either. Have compassion and say, this is a process. I'm going to commit to learning about this, exploring my inner fears, my anxieties, and work on getting stronger. Work on being willing to let the person react the way they're going to react and you be okay with it. You not taking it on, even if they play the victim. You know what that is. You can anticipate it and you won't take it on internally. If you don't follow through on a boundary, you're telling the other person that you can be manipulated either through their harsh reactions, guilt tripping you, playing the victim, or ignoring how you feel while blowing out of proportion how you're making them feel. So setting boundaries for the first time in a relationship may escalate things at first. They're not used to it. But if you remain resolved and calm and courageous, it will settle down. They may shift to another tactic, but you will be more practiced to recognize it. It won't feel so confusing and chaotic. You can say, oh, now they're going to try this method to get me to comply with their demands. You'll be able to see it more clearly, but you have to have the courage to have the resolve to follow through on that boundary. And when you get to that point, I promise it will change so much of the negative dynamics in your life. You are worthy of peace. You are worthy of love that feels kind, respectful, and emotionally safe. So as we close, I want to invite you to join our Restore coaching calls, a safe, supportive space where you can ask questions, gain clarity, and receive encouragement on your healing journey. We're here to walk alongside you. And if you haven't taken our Finding Clarity course yet, I encourage you to look into that as well. And if you are a donor who joined us for the workshop today, thank you for being here with us. If you would like to make a small donation, I want to let you know that just for $10 a month, you could support one of the attendees at this coaching call to join our Restore coaching calls and get all their questions answered directly by me. Thank you for being part of today's special time together. I'll stay on for any questions.
Okay, very good. Annette, I wanted to read to you real quick. Somebody had said, Annette is such a good teacher, and I couldn't agree more. There was lots of appreciation for your examples, especially when you were doing healthy versus unhealthy boundaries. I think those specifics go a really long way when it makes sense, but how and what does it look like? So that was very much
Yeah, it's complicated. Thank you.
It is
Thanks
very
for saying that. It
Yeah.
takes work. It takes practice. And there's a lot of good boundary books out there that you might benefit from reading.
Yes. I'm going to, somebody else is saying, thank you, Annette, for this session. It has been so helpful and all of your incredible resources. We thank
Welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have several people who are saying they wanted the course link even early on. And so they're just so grateful to be here, and hopefully we'll um, see them in our course. I do want to read a couple of comments to you, Annette. Um,
Sure.
okay. One says, let me just make sure it's not coming off another. Okay, it's not. Okay, it says, um, it is being consistent with a boundary. I found that hard as the words and situations change so regularly. Detachment sounds great. Where can I find out more about detachment? Disengagement is effective. Calmly and firmly, it is difficult not to get drawn into explanation if the abuser accepts or demands it, or explanation.
Wait, read that last sentence again. It's
Sure.
difficult.
Disengagement is effective calmly and firmly. It is difficult not to get drawn into explanation if the abuser accepts or demands it. And I thought you kind of touched on this, but maybe you can address that and where more can be learned about detachment.
Yeah, you have probably tried every method to break through to them. You've tried being soft, you've tried pleading, tears, being firm. You've probably tried everything under the sun. You've probably read 20 marriage books to try to help reach your spouse. You don't need to repeat anything you've already said. You can simply say, we have talked this to exhaustion over the years. If you paid attention to what I was saying, then you know how I feel. I'm not going to enter into a chaotic conversation. This is my position. I'm comfortable with it. I've thought about it, and I'm firm on it. You don't have to offer anymore. That's you doing all the work for them. You can simply say, I've talked to you about this over the years many times. If you weren't paying attention to remember that, it's not my problem. I'm not going to engage in this similar conversation that we've had countless times before. Because by the time you set a boundary, something has happened multiple times that you don't like, and you've tried every way, every nice way to get them to respect your boundary, because that would work in a healthy relationship. But with an abuser, they're going to counter you. They're going to do the opposite of what you share. That's why I say detach and stop bringing your emotional vulnerabilities. They're only going to exploit them. They can't help themselves. They're trying to power over and control you. So they take your vulnerabilities and use it to dominate you. I hope that answers the question.
Really good, really insightful. Thank you, Annette.
Yeah.
And then what can I do to help myself withdraw responding to contact from an abuser after I have left them?
Withdrawing contact? You mean
Uh,
you're
with
still
just,
in contact with them?
so we actually get this question phrased a little differently. We get it a lot. What can I do to help myself withdraw responding? So to either stop
Oh, to stop
responding,
responding.
yes, with the abuser after leaving.
Um, a lot of people go no contact, and you just simply, well, there's two things that you can do. You can refuse, and they might amp up and get all desperate and text you 100 messages, and you just refuse to respond. Now, if you have children and you have to co-parent with them, then you have a responsibility to respond to specific things pertaining to your child, to custody, to the transition of when one parent picks up and drops off and those sorts of things. But you just go gray rock. It's a term, gray rock, on all the other items that the abuser is either accusing you of or asking you questions about, or, blaming. they are emotionally dumping on you. And so you just don't respond. Don't let them, I know that what they say to you, which is so distorted, can really cause you to want to explain yourself and put them in their place. But it's not going to do any good. They're just going to take that and then be more crazy. They're just going to draw you into more craziness. It's never going to be anything other than a circular conversation that continually blames you and does not lead to solutions. So it's for your own sanity. Gray rock, don't respond to the emotional stuff. If you absolutely have to say something, you can just say, I don't share your perspective. The kids can be picked up at 6 o'clock, something like that. But I recommend not saying anything. Or you can, what I think is really helpful if you have to face court still, is to demand that all communication, and you can have this through a judge order, all communication be on the platform Talking Parents. There's another one, I can't think of it right now, but that way, all of your communications can be viewed by the judge when your court case comes. They can just scroll back and look at the dynamics. And so as they're, accusing you of all these things, you can simply answer in a way according to what you think a judge would want to know about that situation, but nothing more, nothing emotional, nothing other than factually. So using Talking Parents as a way to document the facts, you can use it to your advantage and it will all be saved. And then you simply, you stay polite. The kids are available to be picked up at 6 o'clock. Does that work for you? You can stay polite. You show that you're not trying to keep the kids away from them, that you're willing to collaborate, to cooperate. But you emotionally, you yourself do not, it's still part of the trauma bond while you want to respond, because you want them to recognize your point of view, but it's not going to happen. They are controlling, they're domineering. They want to win arguments. They don't want to reach mutual understanding and emotional connection. That's what you want, but they are operating from an entirely different worldview. They want to use what you say to dominate you. So just remember that and don't engage.
Great. Thank you, Annette.
Yeah.
We have one longer comment. I'm going to read it to you, and then you can let me know if you want me to repeat it. It says, okay, wait, let me make sure I got the top one. Yep. I find that because I have an anxious attachment style because of my childhood trauma and my last relationship was cohesive, I get into relationships with avoidant people. I'm getting divorced because my husband didn't meet my emotional needs. He blamed my past against me. I kept blaming myself, spent thousands on therapy. My therapist said my husband has narcissistic traits because he doesn't take accountability. I take accountability for my wounds, but he didn't support or make me feel loved, which made me worse. Oh, 1 sec. Sorry, the chat just jumped. Oh, 1 second. Oh, goodness. Okay, here we go. That might have been the last one. Yep, that was it. That was the last one. But I wanted to read that to you because we do talk a lot about avoidant attachment style. And I think what this person's expressing is quite common with the one who's causing the harm, not taking accountability, and the one who's being harmed, trying to take accountability and making it worse because then we overfunction or take on too much responsibility. So I thought that was a very common experience, and you might want to address that.
Well, I mean, it's very common. It's not universal, but there's a whole section, there's several different types of narcissistic tendencies. Some are avoidant, some are grandiose and pursue you. Like they won't let an argument be over. They're going to argue 3 hours in the middle of the night. Then there are those that are like, you know, when it gets stressful, they get in the car and leave for days at a time, or give you the silent treatment and won't have a healthy conversation. So I'm glad that if you have, I forget what attachment style you said, a disorganized attachment or
Anxious.
anxious. If you have anxious attachment style, you need somebody who's going to be emotionally safe. And that's not going to be an avoidant person. An avoidant person abandons you emotionally over and over and over again. And I'm not saying that your needs are all that great. I mean, you're seeking a healthy, empathic, mutually empathic relationship. Now, if your needs are great, where it's just putting too much pressure on the other person, I see that with unresolved trauma also, where you have high expectations that the other person needs to meet your emotional needs. I would really work with a therapist on that, to determine what is really healthy in a relationship. How much expectation should we have of another person? You know, there's varying degrees of how close people are in their intimate relationships. You might be pursuing super intimate close, and it might just not be possible with that person. Maybe you get to this point, but the person you are with, you're like way over here. You're never going to get your emotional needs met. But I would love for you to do some work on really establishing whether your needs are too demanding. And if they aren't, then just congratulate yourself that you got out of a relationship that's going to make you feel lonely for the rest of your life. You're not going to have your needs met. You're not going to have your emotional, you're not going to feel loved and cherished. You're going to feel abandoned all the time. And that's a very painful place to be in. And somebody who's avoidant, who won't work through conversations, it actually makes you have to put the armor on your chest to protect yourself. And it takes a lot of energy to hold up this wall of protection while you're walking around the house with somebody who's avoiding you. It's a very painful, stressful position to be in. So for that reason alone, I'm really glad that you made the choice to leave. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, really good. Really good insight. There is a comment here. I don't think it's a question. Oh, this person said thank you, Annette. The question you just
You're welcome.
addressed. Comments. I don't think there's a question in here, but I want to read it because it's about boundaries and the legal system and all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. It says, something I'm learning about boundaries relevant to where I am in this process in the midst of a separation process with my child's father is that being too rigid, for example, gray rock and not communicating, is not a good way to show up as collaborative in the eyes of the court or any professionals. It's incredibly difficult, almost like I have to continue fawning even though I feel more fight energy to pretend that it's possible to collaborate with him. I'm trying to do it to get through this for my daughter and for myself, but I'm seeing how we are forced to participate in a systemic level of acceptance despite unacceptable behavior. The power dynamic keeps it this way. That said, I'm also far better at setting boundaries along the way, so there is hope too. And I thought that is such a very realistic, real situation for so many people. But I love the message of hope at the end that even still, this person is saying she is far better at setting boundaries, even with all these challenging dynamics that she has to almost act like they're collaborating, even though that's not really possible with someone who's narcissistic.
Yeah, and the courts, I mean, I hope that you're on Talking Parents or one of those platforms so that all of this is really well documented and you don't have to save your text messages, make photocopies. It just gets so, it's so much work. I hope that, because if you are You said fawning, to those who don't know what fawning is, it's the same as like appeasing. So for all the times that you're appeasing this person's difficult demands or chaotic behaviors, you're revealing that you're cooperative, but that doesn't mean that the court won't understand how some boundaries you just need to set for the betterment of your child, to reduce the chaos for your child. I want to encourage you to go to a website called Coercive Control Consulting. It's Dr. Christine Cocciola, and she helps parents, protective parents, which you are, deal with toxic parents, narcissistic parents, in a way that presents you well to the court, or if there's a court evaluation or any kind of mediator or psychologist that's involved in your court case. She really teaches you how to present yourself well so that you don't come off like somebody who's complaining about or disparaging the other parent. You are focused on the child and what's best for the child. And if that involves a complaint about the other parent as it pertains to the child, you do that. But it's just so nuanced and wonderful what she teaches. So I really encourage you to explore her website and join some of her webinars, because it's very insightful.
Yes. Yes.
So it sounds like you have a really good head on your shoulders anyways.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not easy, but yeah.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
One question left, and then
Okay.
we can wrap up because I know we're on the hour.
Yeah.
It says, "Thank you so much for this session and the work you do. I have a hard time understanding what empathy actually can look like in a healthy relationship. I grew up in a narcissistic family system and have realized that I have been in unhealthy and toxic relationships. How do you trust your gut without a healthy blueprint?"
Well, if you grew up with narcissistic parents, I want to encourage you to read a book called The Human Magnet Syndrome. And I think it will really give you the space and time to read through this book and ponder some specific things to look at in your early childhood. And to, instead of coming from a place where you're lacking love for yourself, where you're experiencing self-doubt, you'll, in the process of this book and some follow-up work, you'll be able to get to a place where you feel so secure in your own skin and you really love yourself and see your self-worth. That is a worthwhile effort. I would not be dating anybody until I completed that. And the book even says that you don't need to interfere with your growth period by having various characters come into your life before you've fully completed this process where you can present your best self and you cannot feel insecure or self-doubting. I want you to have that sense of confidence based on actual real love and belief in yourself, where you've had the time to change your internal messaging to yourself to be one of more affirmations and belief in yourself. It's so necessary to be able to recognize the red flags in toxic people. The other way you can recognize red flags is by taking our course, Finding Clarity and Healing in Difficult, Confusing, and Abusive Relationships. We break down the mechanics of abusive relationships so well. We beta tested this course for years before we actually launched it. And we know what language will resonate with you, where you'll really retain the information. It's only 4 modules. It's packed with comprehensive information and education so that you will be much more equipped to be able to see early in the relationship when there are red flags. You'll have so much clarity that your confusion, it'll dismantle your confusion. So I recommend those two things, the Human Magnet Syndrome and our Finding Clarity course. It takes work. There's not a magic word that I can say to you that's going to suddenly change the dynamic. This is something that you deserve to give yourself time. Love yourself enough to give yourself the time to pursue this internal work on yourself. I promise you that you were going to come out so much more confident and stronger.
Yes, so good. Such a
And
worthy
you
investment.
deserve that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Several people had asked for the names, and so I'm just going to repeat this real quick. The links are all in the chat for both coercive control consulting and the human magnet syndrome and the course that Annette referenced. So if we end the session and you still need to get that information or weren't able to find it, please email our team and we'll get that sent to you as well. And I think
And
that
you email us at info@themenproject.com.
yes. And that's all we have for today, Annette.
All right. Well, I just thank you so much for being here today. It's a special time where we can bring donors and our community members together. You're all so important to us. We love you. We care about you. And mostly, I just really want you to take good care of yourselves. Okay. Bye-bye.